As I'm sure you all know by now, HS2 is the planned high-speed railway line between London and the north of England. HS1 is the existing line from St Pancras to the Channel Tunnel. Phase 1 will run from London to Birmingham and was originally due to be completed in 2026. Phase 2 will run from Birmingham to Manchester and Leeds and was due to be completed in 2033. Phase 2A will run from the West Midlands to Crewe. 2B extends the route to Manchester and Leeds. In September 2019, Alan Cook, the chairman of HS2, confirmed that the project would be delayed by up to 7 years. Phase 1 would now be completed at the earliest in 2028 and Phase 2 at the latest in 2040. Last April, it was further announced that initial services would start from Old Oak Common, not Euston, and that they would start in 2029 at the earliest. Services wouldn't start from Euston until at least 2031 and possibly 10 years later than was first planned. Scheduled ranges for Phase 2 have yet to be established. In 2011, the cost was estimated at £33 billion. This gradually increased over time to £55.7 billion, that at 2015 prices. Then, at £400 million a mile, it would be the most expensive railway ever built. In 2019, Alan Cook also admitted that the project will now cost up to £88 billion at 2019 prices. The government was so concerned about the spiralling cost that they commissioned a review into the whole scheme, chaired by Douglas Oakerby, himself a former chairman of HS2. According to this review, there is a considerable risk that the cost could now rise to £106 billion. In February, last February, the Oakerby review recommended that HS2 be completed in its entirety. Phase 2A, the Birmingham to Crewe section, would be combined with Phase 1, and Phase 2B, the wire from Crewe to Manchester in the west and Leeds in the east, be paused until a further review is carried out, and that's where we are now with that. The spend on HS2 up to last October was £9.6 billion. That's nearly 25% of the total budget for Phase 1. The average HS2 worker costs the taxpayer over £94,000 a year. HS2 has become something of a gravy train rather than a high-speed train for the Chief Executive, Mark Thurston. He was paid 4 times as much as the Prime Minister and is the most highly paid public worker in the country. Last April, the Department for Transport gave approval for HS2 Limited to issue the notice to proceed to the 4 main works contractors working on Phase 1 of the project. This marks the point where work transitions from scheme, design and preparatory work to full detailed design and construction of the railway between London and the West Midlands. Construction of the railway officially got underway on September the 5th last year. All the work that had been carried on so far, the work that's carried on so far, is what is known as the enabling work to enable the railway to be built rather than the construction of the railway itself. Less than 2 months later, HS2 admitted an extra £800 million will be needed to remove asbestos from Euston Station and to deal with the complexities of bringing the railway into the new hub station. Trains will eventually leave a massively redeveloped Euston Station in a tunnel. There will be 11 platforms, each a quarter of a mile long. The only station between Euston and Birmingham will be a new interchange at Old Oak Common in West London near Hammersmith Hospital. The first 6.6 miles from Euston to Old Oak Common will cost more than £8 billion. That's just under half of the expected total cost of Crossrail. A link to HS2 at St Pancras was planned from here. That plan has now been shelved. The existing train depot will be moved to a new site near Langley. This is an artist's impression of what it might look like. The route now continues from here in a tunnel. There will be 6 tunnel boring machines, TBMs. They will bore 2 13-mile long tunnels, starting in mid-2022 and finishing early in 2024. The route finally emerges from the tunnel opposite West Ruislip Station, then continues alongside the existing Chiltern railway line. That's the Chiltern railway line that runs through High Wycombe and on up to Birmingham. Ruislip Golf Course is the first of several courses that will be impacted along the route. It was closed in 2019 for about 6 years and will then be reduced to 9 holes. It crosses Breakspear Road South alongside the existing Chiltern Railway Bridge, and this is where a link to Heathrow was to leave the main line. Alas, that plan has also been abandoned. So HS2 will not connect with HS1 or Heathrow. The route then crosses the Colne Valley Regional Park near Denham on a viaduct 2.2 miles long and up to 15 metres high, with trains travelling at 200 miles an hour. It will be one of the longest viaducts in the UK. Noise barriers along the viaduct will be up to 5 metres high, meaning that passengers won't have much of a view. It passes directly over the Hillingdon Outdoor Activity Centre. This is the first of 11 lakes and reservoirs that HS2 will cross on its way to Birmingham. It then crosses the Grand Union Canal, the first of 12 canals. Then Savay Lake, one of the premier carp fishing lakes in the UK. Then over Moor Hall Road. Then enters the Broadwater Lake Reserve, the first of 160 wildlife sites that are threatened along the proposed route. This is the River Colne, just one of the 112 rivers the route will cross. The viaduct then passes over the A412 North Orbital Road and continues in a cutting across farmland towards the M25. This is Denham Water Ski Club, which has now had to build a new clubhouse on the other side of the lake. This is a Buckinghamshire Council visualisation of what the viaduct might look like as it crosses the North Orbital Road. And this is the reality starting to appear. We're looking along the route of the viaduct here from the drive down to Denham Water Ski Club. And then looking back along the line of the viaduct. Having driven around the area taking pictures over 10 years and trying to visualize what the impact might look like, I have to say that it is far worse than my worst imagination. And what really stuns me is just how many trees have been destroyed. Now we're looking north along the route as it crosses over the A412. This will be the Colne Valley Viaduct North Launch Satellite Compound, which makes it sound like Cape Canaveral. It's actually where the viaduct will be built from. The tree in the distance on the skyline marks Old Shire Lane, which crosses the route here. This ancient bridleway has been temporarily diverted until the middle of 2024. When it reopens, it will pass underneath the viaduct. The route leaves the viaduct on the West Hyde embankment and then enters Tyler House Lane cutting, which will be up to 30 metres deep. We're now looking north along the route towards Tyler House Lane, and this is actually taken from the bridleway from Old Shire Lane. Tyler House Lane will cross the route on a bridge. It's due to be closed for a month next year for this bridge to be completed. Now looking back from Tyler House Lane, you can see the North Orbital Road going up the hill in the distance. This is a newly constructed haul road which will run the length of the viaduct and then onto the Chiltern Tunnel South Portal. We talk about a tunnel portal. Portal is the entry or exit to a tunnel. So this is good news for the local residents because all the construction traffic will now go along this haul road rather than using the local roads. Construction compounds will be in place for 8 years in total and linked to the M25 by 2 temporary access roads. Chalfont Lane is closed and will be for over 5 years and diverted via a temporary link road to Hornhill Road in Maple Cross. Spoil extracted from the Chiltern Tunnel will be dispersed here across the Western Valley slopes. This is the open farmland that the route will cross, and that's as it is now. So this is the Chiltern Tunnel South Portal. Tyler House Lane that we mentioned, you can see the junction in the bottom left-hand corner, just where the Extinction Rebellion protest is actually taking place. That's the gathering of people down the bottom there. Just looking north now from Tyler House Lane towards the tunnel pit portal. This was taken in June 2019, where the whole area was covered in poppies, very colourful. And this picture was taken about 2 weeks ago. So lots of factories and works there. You can see the tunnel portal just near the M25. The large building on the left-hand side is the casting factory, where they will make the tunnel lining, some 112,000 segments. And the sectioned building to the right is the aggregate store. And then you've got an office block to the right. 2 TBMs have now been delivered and are now being assembled, ready to be launched in the spring. The 170-metre long machines are specifically designed for the mix of chalk and flint that they will encounter under the Chilterns. They're expected to take around 3 years to excavate the 2 9.1-metre diameter tunnels, cutting around 16 metres a day. Tunnels will be lined with concrete as they go, and each section will have 7 segments, and each segment will weigh up to 8 tonnes. The TBMs will mix the spoil with water to form a slurry, which will be pumped back along to the main site, where it will be treated before being used for landscaping on site. These tunnel boring machines will require 8.1 megalitres of water, similar to the water requirement of a town the size of Chesham over a similar period. At the moment, we're not sure where they're going to get this water from. This shows the two temporary M25 slip roads and the temporary link road between Chalfont Lane and Hornhill Road. So now we're going round the M25 from junction 17, the Maple Cross junction, towards the M40. I'm sure any of you that have been around there will have noticed the two link roads. Temporary. All of these link roads are temporary and they will be removed once construction is complete. So they're good news for I'm just getting a warning that I'm running out of battery. Good news for the local roads because it will take traffic off the local roads, but not such good news for the M25, of course. So now we're looking back from the M25 across that section back towards the viaduct in the top of the picture. This is actually the only part of the route that will be in Hertfordshire. And that's as it was across a field of barley. The cutting here will be up to 30 metres deep. The route then enters the 10.6 mile long twin bore Chiltern tunnel passing under the M25. There will be cross passages every 320 metres, 40 of them in total. Trains will have taken only 90 seconds to get from the tunnel entrance at West Ruislip Station before they enter the tunnel here. This crosses show the area we're going to be looking at now. The two crosses mark the M25 at the bottom where we are now, and the other one just beyond Wendover. This shows the 4 ventilation shafts across the Chilterns. There will also be an intervention shaft near the North Tunnel portal at South Heath. These would also be used for emergency access during operation of the railway. Tunnels will be up to 90 metres deep, and the deepest spot will be just about the top of Gore Hill before the Amersham vent shaft. The A413 is the main road passing the Chalfonts and Amersham, then on to Great Missenden and Wendover. The first of the vent shafts will be in Chesham Lane, Chalfont St Peter. The construction compound will be in place here for 7 years. The tunnel depth about 63 metres. This is Chesham Lane as it was before any of the construction. And then the early enabling work started preparing the construction compound. This was back in 2019, about 2 years ago. So this is the sort of thing that happens as HS2 appears along the route. Construction compounds completed first. The site perimeters will generally be fenced with 2.4 metre high solid hoardings, which will usually be painted green. Some, like this one that you can see being constructed here, will be up to 3.6 metres high to control construction noise. This shows you how they construct all vent shafts. They'll all be done the same. Put simply, they cut a cylindrical hole, fill it with concrete, creating a diaphragm wall, then remove the spoil from the middle with a base added in preparation of the arrival of the TBMs. And then finally, the head house is finally built over the shaft. This is the cutter they use for the diaphragm wall. TBMs should reach here around September this year. So they'll start work in the spring, and by September they will have reached the first vent shaft. This is an artist's impression of what the head house will look like. The design is decided after consultation with relevant bodies, and this one is designed to look like a farm building in a rural location. All the construction compounds have designated access routes, and the original one here was through a residential area past Robertswood School and the Epilepsy Centre, then down to join the A413 at the Chalfont St Peter roundabout. Not a good idea with lorries like this arriving. A 400-metre long temporary haul road was built last year and now links the site directly to the A413. Traffic lights have been installed here, and the road will be in operation until about November 2024, when it will be removed and the land restored. All of the traffic lights are designed to rest on green, the idea being that they only stop traffic when traffic wants to leave the haul road. Although there have been problems with them, twice when I've been past, they've been stopping traffic when no need. And I'm led to believe that this is a software glitch which will be sorted out. A temporary marshalled lorry holding area has been put in place on the 413 near Gerrard's Cross. HGVs can be held in this newly surfaced lay-by until their approach to the vent shaft is clear. And there you can see the bottom left-hand corner, that's the traffic lights that we were just looking at. So it's a relatively short link road instead of taking all the HGVs through a residential area. The tunnel then passes under the River Misbourne for the first time in the centre of Chalfont St Giles. There are serious concerns about this rare and valuable chalk stream and that it could be lost forever. The Chalfont St Giles vent shaft will be situated in Bottomhouse Farm Lane. The road is now closed as a through route and traffic will be diverted for approximately 2 years. The construction compound will be in place here for 7 years and tunnel depth is about 32 metres. This is looking back to the east towards the 413 Harewood Downs Golf Club. Anybody that's driven along here will be only too well aware because the traffic lights here controlling the work. Access to this vent shaft will be via yet another temporary haul road running alongside the existing Bottomhouse Farm Lane. This lane will be stopped up temporarily and traffic diverted onto the haul road via a short link road. The lane will be temporarily widened but still single track with passing places. This is Bottomhouse Farm Lane, which has been stopped up and from where traffic will be diverted onto the haul road. So there you can see the lane as it is now and the haul road alongside it. The designated access route to this site originally was along the 413 and then the A355, which is the road running up Gore Hill to Beaconsfield. Now all the traffic here, all HS2 traffic, will turn right along the 413 and back to the A40 and then the M40 and the M25. This junction is another that will be controlled by traffic lights. Now we're looking back up Bottomhouse Farm Lane towards the A413, and as you can see, the houses on the left once had a lovely view down the Misbourne Valley. And then along came the embankment. So this shows the embankment that the haul road is built on the top, and as you can see, the houses, well, for them, it's become a living hell. They've lost their view and have now got construction traffic passing by the bedroom window. Here you can see, this is a view from the new haul road, and you can see how high it is compared with the houses on the right. The haul road will then cross the Misbourne on a newly constructed bridge. There are concerns that the foundations here will cause damage to the river bank. Now the bridge has been complete. The South Bucks Way crosses the route just beyond the Misbourne, and here we are looking back from the South Bucks Way, so the Misbourne is in the middle of 413, it's just below the skyline. Here the bridge is under construction. As again, I remind you, it's a temporary haul road, and all of this will be removed once construction is complete. And apparently, the bridge is only on hire. This is the South Bucks Way crossing now, looking back towards the bridge. And this is as it was, the South Bucks Way crossing Bottom House Farm Lane, and as it is now. Permanent widening of Bottom House Farm Lane meant that half a mile of historic hedgerow came under threat. The original plan was to move it back, but alas, this proved impossible, and so most of it was destroyed. Once the haul road is complete, as I've already said, the lane will be permanently widened. It will be single track with passing places. And it's my understanding that the lane is actually closed now while this work is going on. And access is now denied to the buildings further up. The farmer is allowed apparently to use the haul road. We're now looking west along the haul road from the South Bucks Way. And as it is now, and you can see the short link from the haul road onto Bottom House Farm Lane. The lane passes very close to Upper Bottom House Farm, and we're looking north here towards the farm. The Chalfont Valley Equestrian Centre Menage can be seen in the foreground. Alas, the centre was forced to close and relocate. It was then demolished to make way for the haul road. From horses to horsepower. The road then continues passing very close to the residential section of the farm. This is looking west beyond the farm. The lane continues to the right of the hedgerow, and the haul road would be on the left. Alas, not only was the hedge removed, but the lane as well. This is classified as an important hedgerow. That means it was supposed to be protected. Alas, that didn't stop its removal. We're now looking north across Bottom House Farm Lane towards the construction compound. The lane runs just beyond the straw bales, and that's looking back down the lane, or back down the haul road. As you can see, Bottom House Farm Lane has disappeared. Again, looking across to the vent shaft, where the vent shaft will be, and as it starts to appear. We're now looking back along the lane towards the entrance, and again, as it is now. The entrance was moved and causing more destruction, more loss of a large section of hedgerow on the other side, on the northern side of the lane. Tunnel boring machines should reach here about March next year. A line of the contractors building the vent shafts, and this is their 3-story, they call it a welfare unit, which is basically offices for the workers. Fusion of the enabling works contractors. So we've got 2 contractors working here at the moment, one continuing working on the Hall Road and widening Bottom House Farm Lane, and the other contractor working on building the construction compound. So you can see that the fusion welfare unit, you can see that on the right hand side. This is Bottom House Farm Lane as it was, and as is now, or at least as it was last October. The Amersham vent shaft will be situated in Wilden Lane, west of Amersham Hospital. This gives you an idea of its exact location. The A404 is the road that goes on to High Wycombe. The 413 goes round the Amersham bypass and then turns right towards Great Missenden. Chiltern Crematorium, at the top of the picture, is actually Britain's busiest, with 4,000 funerals a year. Tunnel depth here will be 40 metres. All the shafts will have a permanent area of hard standing for emergency and service vehicles. The well-used footpath here will remain open throughout the work. This is looking west across the vent shaft site as the area has been cleared, with the A404 to High Wycombe on the right behind the fence. Wilden Lane has been closed since last June, firstly for improvements to the junction with the A404, and then the installation of temporary traffic lights. Again, these, like all of the vent shafts, they will have their own traffic lights, which will rest on green for the main road. The road is still closed now for the repositioning of the footpaths, for the construction of the Belmouth entrances, and for various utility works. Initially, the closure was for a couple of months. Then it was until September, then the end of November, then before Christmas. Needless to say, it is still closed. The footpath runs through the middle of the work before being diverted to run alongside Wilden Lane. Here we're looking west. This was taken last October, looking west, showing the welfare unit on the other side of the lane. TBMs should reach here about September next year, and the vent shaft is due to be completed in April 2025. HS2 have been consulting on the head house design. Their proposal is for a circular single-storey building surrounded by a spiraled weathered steel wall. On top of the building, aluminium fins will apparently help disguise it, soften views, and help to reflect light when viewed from further away. Plans include illumination at night and preserved sight lines so that it can be seen from the approaches to Amersham. These plans are not popular, to say the least. They've been consulting, we've told them we await developments. The head house is due to be constructed between July 23 and July 24. Buses cannot serve the hospital during the road closure, and HS2 agreed to provide a shuttle bus, which has been running between the bus stop at the bottom of Gore Hill and the hospital for 7 days a week. There are also ongoing improvements to the roundabout at the bottom of Gore Hill, which should be finished soon. The tunnel then passes between Shardalows and Shardalows Lake, and then under the Misbourne for the second time. The fourth vent shaft will be alongside the 413 in Little Missenden. This gives you an idea looking across, so we're looking west across the vent shaft. You can see the Chiltern railway line, that's the one going through to, from Amersham through to Aylesbury, 413, and the South Bucks Way, which runs all the way along the River Misbourne. Tunnel depth here will be 31 metres, and the construction compound will be in place for over 6 years. TBMs will reach here early in 2023. One lane of the A413 will be closed for the whole construction period. Work on the construction compound began late last year. A new access to the compound is being constructed a short distance to the north of the original one. One public right-of-way is affected here. It will remain open and has been temporarily rerouted around the compound. The access route now has vehicles travelling north as far as the Frith Hill roundabout at Great Missenden, and then returning south and making a left turn off the A413, a distance of over 5 miles. A possible alternative is to construct a temporary roundabout at the end of the dual carriageway, though this is being very strongly opposed locally. This is what the head house would look like here, another farm building in a rural location. This is due for completion in 2024, when planting will be, they will commence planting around the site. This site is one that I don't think you hardly see from the main road once it's been finished. The gradient of 2.5% from here up to South Heath, and bear in mind this is in a newly bored tunnel, will be one of the steepest on the whole of Network Rail. It is doubtful that trains stopped here in the tunnel will be able to start again, and southbound trains would have to brake going down the hill. The Chesham Road intervention shaft will be situated near the former Annie Bailey's restaurant in South Heath. This is an intervention shaft only. It doesn't have any fans. This gives an idea of the number of archaeological trial trenches that have been dug. This is just one small vent shaft, but they've been doing it along the whole route, finding all sorts of things, and more of that later. But it just gives you an idea, I think, which you're not aware of from ground level. The construction compound here will be in place for 7 years. Tunnel boring machines are due to arrive here around September in 2023. The north portal of the tunnel will be situated just beyond Frith Hill in South Heath. And here we are looking east from just over the 413. Tunnel boring machines are due to finish here at the end of 2023. They will then be dismantled and scrapped. This is looking the other way, looking west. Construction compound will be in place here for 8 years, and the cutting as it leaves the tunnel will be up to 16 metres deep. There will be permanent access to the portal from Frith Hill. Public right-of-way GM13 is now closed. It will be diverted via GM12 and then reinstated over the tunnel portal once the construction is complete. A temporary access road 740 metres long has been built here, and that will link the compound to the A413 at the Great Missenden Link Road roundabout. This will also be used for access to subsequent compounds from the north of here, removing traffic from the local roads. The last section of the tunnel is through a layer of clay which will not be able to support it. A number of piles will be constructed using rigs like this. Alas, access to this site will be via Frith Hill and not via the Hall Road. Much delayed improvements to the A413 junctions with Frith Hill and the link road here in Great Missenden are now complete. Basically, they put filter lanes at the bottom, left filter lanes at the bottom of Frith Hill and at the top of the link road. The route then continues in a cutting under a series of newly constructed bridges between Great Missenden and Wendover. The first of these will be in Leather Lane. They will use offline construction for all of these bridges, which means that they make the bridge, build the bridge alongside the road, and then divert the road over the new bridge, and then they can build the railway underneath it. It means that they don't have to close the roads, and because they're using the trace, the route for access to all of these compounds and all of these works, these little lanes won't have to be widened and straightened, which is what we anticipated would have to happen in the first place. This is an artist's impression of what the bridges will look like. This is Leather Lane Bridge. One of the things that they've had to consider is that although these are tiny little lanes and you'd have a job to do more than about 10 or 15 miles an hour down them, they are unrestricted. So the bridges they put over them have to be capable of carrying traffic at 60 miles an hour. The next is the Cottage Farm overbridge. And this is looking west across the bridge towards Grim's Ditch and Iron Age earthworks. All the trees have now been removed from here in preparation for archaeological survey work to be undertaken, involving the digging of 152 trial trenches. Grim's Ditch will then be destroyed. The route then passes under footpath TLE2 and Bowood Lane, and then on to Jones Hill Wood and the Wendover Dean Viaduct. This is looking south across Bowood Lane, what will be the Bowood Lane overbridge. The footpath overbridge will be on the other side of the hedge that you can see through the gap in the trees, and then Grim's Ditch beyond. So you've got an idea there of how the route will approach Bowood Lane. You can just make out there is a protest camp here, and you can just make out their lookout in the tree. The ancient woodland of Jones Hill Wood will be partially destroyed. Apparently it's where Roald Dahl's a regular visitor to the wood, and it said it inspired him to write Fantastic Mr. Fox. One of the protest camps was situated here. That was removed last October. The last person to be removed was Daniel Hooper, who was better known as Swampy, and I'm sure a lot of you will remember him from the Newbury bypass protests and various other things. At Wendover Dean, Durham Farm will be demolished to make way for Wendover Dean Viaduct. This would have a maximum height of 16.8 metres, and the maximum speed of trains here will be 225 miles an hour. Alternative routes for 3 public footpaths will be required here. One of these footpaths is the Chiltern Way, here passing across the farmyard, which will then eventually pass under the viaduct. They have now taken possession of Durham Farm, the last days of Durham Farm, which is probably going to be demolished in the spring. It's hard to imagine here, we're looking along the route, so you've got the farm buildings below you. Hard to imagine trains travelling at 250 miles an hour above our heads, so some 50 feet, 55 feet above our heads here. This is the Bowood Lane junction with the A413. The route then descends to Wendover across more open farmland. The next bridge is Rocky Lane Bridge, which you can see on the left. That gives you an idea of we're moving along the 413. This will be an underbridge, 3 meters below the existing ground level. It's an underbridge, so HS2 will pass over the top, rather than the others which were overbridges. Again, you can see a pattern of archaeological trenches. Offline construction again here, and the compound will be in place for 7 years. So this is Rocky Lane, where it comes out to the main road near the petrol station. Smaldene Viaduct will then take the route over the A413. This gives you an idea, that's the roundabout you can see before you get to Wendover. The viaduct also crosses the Chiltern railway line here and Smaldene Lane. The railway bridge will have to be rebuilt. Construction compound, that I haven't mentioned overnight accommodation. None of the compounds will have overnight accommodation other than 2 initially planned, one here, the other at the South Portal. South Portal, they probably won't be using that for overnight accommodation. We don't know here, but the compound may well have overnight accommodation for between 170 and 240 people. Road Barn Farm, a bit of a landmark as you approach Wendover. Alas, will be demolished. That's just about where the viaduct will start to cross the main road. And this is an impression, the current design of what the viaduct might look like. The route continues on an embankment up to 11 meters high alongside the Wendover bypass. It then enters the cut and cover Wendover tunnel alongside Backham Lane. Cut and cover means the others were bored tunnels. Cut and cover means basically they dig a huge trench, put the railway in and then cover it up. But you obviously destroy, although it's covered up, you destroy a large area of land in order to put it in. Backham Lane will be closed for 2 years, and yet another temporary link road will connect Ellsborough Road to Backham Lane. And this is looking back down Backham Lane to where the route will cross. So that's just about where the portal to the cut and cover tunnel will be. As you can see, more extensive archaeological survey work has been carried on here. We're looking east from just above Coombe Hill. Chap you can see here is basically looking through stuff with a shovel as the earth mover shovels, clears the land. Laborious work. There have also been extensive ground investigations here. There are very serious concerns about the stability of Backham Hill. Sadly, the Wendover Memorial Woodland will be devastated. A large section has now been cleared of trees planted in memory of lost loved ones. Some badger sets will also be destroyed here. Their residents will have to find a new home. Alas, they're not the only ones losing their homes, as 6 houses will be demolished in Aylesbury Road. So here we're looking west across what will be the Green Tunnel. So those are the houses that will be demolished. And then that's looking east, looking down the hill. Wendover Cricket Club will also be demolished and will relocate to Halton. Aylesbury Road will be diverted behind the remaining houses for 2 years before being reinstated over the Green Tunnel. 7 public rights of way will be diverted here, including the ancient Ridgeway. The North Tunnel portal will be where Folly Bridge crosses the Wendover bypass. That's the last of the bridges you pass over as you go along the Wendover bypass. This is looking west across the Wendover Green Tunnel portal, and you can see Coombe Hill in the distance. It was here that archaeologists found a 4,000-year-old Bronze Age ceremonial site. The entrance aligns with the winter solstice. Important remains have been carefully removed and documented. This man could have lived as much as 2,500 years ago and may have been murdered or executed. The clay soil helped preserve his skeleton. The site has now been covered up in preparation for construction of the railway. This overlay shows that it will be directly underneath the track. The route then leaves the Chilterns and cuts a swathe across the Vale of Aylesbury on its way to Birmingham. The access route for construction, all of the construction compounds in this area, was to have been via the A410 through Princess Risborough and West Wickham, and then up to High Wycombe to the M40 at Handy Cross. This route has now been changed, and traffic from all of these compounds will travel back along the A413 to Amersham, and then up Gore Hill and along the A355 to Beaconsfield. We await clarification of volumes. A new link road has been built in Beaconsfield, supposedly linking the A355 directly to the A40 roundabout. But at the moment, it's not known exactly when this will be completed. In the meantime, large volumes of construction traffic will have to negotiate the small roundabout at the junction with the A40. There will be minor improvements to this existing junction. Construction working hours will be 8 till 6 Monday to Friday, 8 until 1 on Saturday, and tunnelling will be carried out around the clock. Operating hours, the train's operating hours, 5 till midnight Monday to Saturday, 8 till midnight on Sunday, with maintenance work being carried out overnight. Each train will carry up to 550 passengers. From day one, there will be up to 14 trains in each direction per hour during peak periods, rising to 18 in the longer term. As a comparison, the Bakerloo on the London Underground runs 21 trains per hour. I would draw your attention to the HS2 photo diary. Most of these pictures will appear in the diary. If you go on to the Chiltern Society website, HS2, you will see the photo diary there. It covers all the major impact locations across the Chilterns, as well as the Colne Valley Park. It's constantly updated. The last pictures there were taken at the bottom of at the beginning of the month. Alas, I'm a bit frustrated at the moment because of the current restrictions. I can't get out, and so the plane we fly in is stuck in Essex as well. So I don't know when normal service will be resumed there. But I do recommend that, and you can keep an eye on what's happening there. The idea is that it will be a permanent record of the construction of the railway line. And one of the things that has driven me there, when HS1, when HS2 was planned, we tried to find pictures of the construction of HS1 to see what construction of a high-speed railway would look like. And there weren't any. We couldn't find any anywhere. So I was determined that that was not going to happen in the Chilterns, and it has been carefully recorded and documented for future reference. I'm happy to talk to other groups. I've been doing this presentation in person up until recently, although I do think this online facility does work well. I wanted to do one for the Chiltern Society, but it would have involved a lot of organising and hiring a hall, etc., etc. So if you want me to talk to any other group that you think might be interested, then you can either email me or the office at the Chiltern Society. I'm very grateful to Andy Cordiner for the aerial pictures. I think they make it much easier to see where the route is going. I think it's much better than looking at pictures of maps. And I'm very grateful. We've been flying for several years from Denham. And as I say, normally we fly regularly, but can't at the moment. The intention, what I'd like to do, is to cover the whole route across Buckinghamshire. I couldn't do it from the ground, but it's relatively simple once you get to Wendover to keep on flying and to take pictures further up the route. So that is something that may well happen in the future, that we'll have another section beyond the Chilterns. Just a word about the Chiltern Society. The Chilterns cover an area of 650 square miles of woodlands, hillsides and valleys. The Chiltern Society are the only voluntary organisation dedicated to conserving and caring for this unique landscape. We have 7,000 members and 500 volunteers. I'm sure a lot of you are members, but for those of you who aren't, well, why don't you come and join us? You'll be most welcome, and you will help us care for the Chilterns. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop screen sharing now, and we will see if there are any questions.